Dan Kaiser, Interim Superintendent. I've been asked to read one of my favorite books for Read Your Heart Out. The book that I'm going to be reading today is called Ida Twist Scientist. And part of the reason why I picked this book is when I started teaching, I was a scientist. I taught science and math, and it's something that has always been a passion for me. The picture that you see there is a picture of my family, so my wife and my two boys. So, Ida Marie, said not a word until she was 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and made her big break with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day chasing each sound and sight and didn't slow down until she conked out at night. Look at her falling asleep on top of the dresser. Her parents were frazzled and tried not to freak as Ida grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly, young Ida had a lot in her head. She would have something to say when it ought to be said. You can see her just looking at the numbers and trying to figure out, and you can just tell she's got a question in her head. That's just what happened when Ida turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree and climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ida's chin quivered, but she did not cry. She took a deep breath and she simply asked, "Why? Why does it tick? Why does it talk? Why aren't they called granddaughter clocks? Why are there pointy things stuck in a rose? Is there hair inside your nose?" She started with why, and then what, how, and when. By bedtime, she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smiled at the curious thoughts of their curious child, who wanted to know what the world was all about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid, whose questions and chaos both grew as she did. Even Miss Greer found her hands quite full when young Ida's chaos wreaked havoc at school, but this was much clearer about Miss Ida Twist. She had all the traits of a great scientist. Ida was busy that first day in spring testing the sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked her right in the nose, that pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowies!" said Ida, which got her thinking. What was the source of that terrible stinking? How does the nose know what there's something to smell? And does it still stink if there's no nose to tell? She rattled off questions and tapped her chin. She started at the start where she ought to begin. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ida loved best. Ida did research to learn all she could about smelling and smells, both the stinky and the good. One hypothesis Ida thought could be true, that terrible stinking came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and soon Ida knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. Then zowie! The stink struck again. Just like that, hypothesis 2. It's caused by the cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne. So young Ida tested. Her test was a flop. She started again, but then her parents yelled, "Stop!" Can't put a cat in the washer. Ida Marie, you to your thinking chair now. By the time we count 3. "Enough," said her mother. "That's it," said her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ida questioned. Her mother said no. What? Ida queried. Her father said go. You've ruined our supper, you've made the cat stink. Enough with the questions, you sit there and think. She looked at her parents, her heart turned to goo. Poor Ida Twist didn't know what to do. She sat there all alone by herself in the hall, and Ida once more could say nothing at all. And so Ida sat, and she sat, and she sat, and she thought about science and the stew and the cat and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is this part of success? Are messes a problem? And while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible stinking? Ida Marie did what all scientists do. She asked a small question, and then she asked two. And each of those led her to 3 questions more, and some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ida got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started with why, then what, how, and when, and at the end of the hall, she reached why once again. Her parents calmed down as they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just started to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair now became a great thinking hall. They watched her young daughter and sighed as they did. What would they do with such a curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and whispered, "We'll figure it out." And that's what they did, because that's what you do when you have a kid that has passion and a heart that is true. They remade the world, and now they're all in the act of helping young Ida sort fiction from fact. She asked lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. Now the whole family is learning and researching. Now as for the smell, what can Ida Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? All they discovered, the stink that curls toes. Well, that is the question, and someday, who knows? Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to read Young Ida Twist, the Great Scientist, to you. It's one of my favorites. Was not one that was around when my boys were growing up, but definitely one that I would be reading to my boys if they were younger. And I hope you have a great Read Your Heart Out, and thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to read to you.